If I may have your attention, please. At this time, we're going to begin the funeral services here today for Mrs. Harriet Cohen. As we begin the service, I would ask if any of you might have a cell phone or any other noise-making device, please turn them off at this time. Officiating the service here today is Rabbi Lily Goldstein. Thank you.
A Valentine's Day note from Alan to Harriet, February 15th, 2016. Where is Harriet if she is not here? Where can she possibly be? Why, I see her smile in the warmth of the sun, her compassion in every gentle breeze. I feel her soft breath where I am, solace in a storm, security in caprice. The love she freely shares with our children, grand and great. She is the life source of our family and the world to me. Today, we are here to remember Harriet Cohen. We acknowledge her husband, Alan, her brother, Marshall, who's joining us remotely, her children, Jay and Mark, her stepchildren, Lori and Bruce, her children-in-law, Jen, Sopeek, David and Marlene, her grandchildren, Alex, Jessica, Brian, Kevin, and Spencer, and her great-grandchildren, Emily, Ethan, Maggie, and Benjamin, and all of you here who loved Harriet and whose lives she touched. We begin our services with words of psalms that connect Harriet's memory to the long history and traditions of our people, beginning with Psalm 23, which I will chant in Hebrew, and then we can recite in English. Adonai roi lo echsar, bino dasha yarbitseni, al mei manuchot, Yenachaleni, nafshi yishovev, Yancheni v'maglei tzedek, Yancheni v'maglei tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit mavet lo ira ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hama yenachamuni ta'aroch lefanai Shulchan neged sorarai, Dishanta vashamen roshi, Kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirtefuni kol yemei chayai, kol yemei chayai. V'shavti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar. Read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We now get to hear words from some of the people who knew and loved Harriet best, beginning with her stepson Bruce. I'm sorry.
Well, Harriet would appreciate this because she always liked gatherings, and on this one she wouldn't have to cook. When I first started thinking about what I wanted to say, I thought maybe the best way to pay tribute to someone who has given me a lifetime of advice would be to imagine the advice she would give me about what to say. And knowing Harriet, I think she would say, don't overthink it. Keep it, just say what you believe, but keep it brief because people really don't like long-winded speeches. Harriet, as a parent, you always knew where you stood with Harriet, and that was in your corner. And she was always in your corner, on your side, with your best interests at heart, no matter what. And I think about that often because at the time when you're young, you don't really think about it, but you kind of take it for granted. But over time, you start to realize what a precious gift that is, because you start to realize that there are people, a lot of them, that may never have anybody feel that way about them at all. And so with the benefit of hindsight, I guess I would say, I have realized just how special a gift that was. Now, I mentioned that she has given me advice over the years and made suggestions, and she has, and I regret to say not all of them were met with commendable enthusiasm. But it turns out she was right about a lot of stuff, and I didn't know it until later, and sometimes until years later. Which brings me to a particular story that I'll share with you that kind of illustrates this point. It's 1973 or 74, and I'm 14 years old, and I'm in my bedroom, and I've been there all day, and the place is a mess. I mean, it looks like a tornado hit it. And there is stuff all over the place. Everything that's supposed to be everything that's supposed to be where it should be isn't. Everything where it shouldn't be is. And it almost looks like a rock star from out of town came in with the sole intentions of trashing a hotel room. And it was terrible. Now, what you realize is that when you're 14 years old and you've been in your room all day, it looks a lot different to you than it does to an adult who opens the door and sees it for the first time. And that's what happened. Harriet opened the door and looked at the room and was just absolutely dumbfounded at what she was looking at. She just couldn't take it in. And the reason is not so much that she couldn't believe that I, at 14, would have trashed my bedroom, because at 14, I was bad. I was perfectly capable of making very poor choices with respect to my living space. But The reason is because 2 hours before she was in my bedroom, and it was clean. It was perfect. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it didn't look like it needed crime scene tape. And this time it did. And she looked at it, she just, anybody who knows Harriet knows she was very seldom at a loss for words. But this time she was. And then eventually she gathers herself, she goes, she says, why would you do this? The room was completely clean 2 hours ago. And me being a little bit of a smartass, I smiled, and I said, I don't really see a problem with it. Everything is exactly where I put it. And at that point, she said, you got 15 minutes to clean up the room, and I could see she was getting steamed. So I bent down and started picking stuff off the floor, and she turns and walks away. A minute later, she's in the doorway, and she says, you know, one day you're going to have kids of your own, and you won't think this is so funny. And oh God, was she right. Anyway, Harriet was a terrific individual. I never knew anybody like her. I think that I've learned a lot of lessons from her over the years, but when you know somebody for a long time, the lesson that you learn isn't something you sit down and discuss. It's not through a conversation. It's just through observing. And just observing Harriet's character, over a long period of time, what really comes out when you observe anybody, I guess, over a long period of time is their character. And Harriet had a great one. She was a wonderful mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. And the world lost a first-rate human being. I lost somebody who I really loved and admired, and I'm going to just really miss. So I guess to wrap it up, I would say that maybe the measure of a life well spent is the impact you leave on the people who you come into contact with. And I think that most people that Harriet has come into contact with would tell you that their lives were better for the fact that she did. I know mine was. Thank you.
We now get to hear from Harriet's son, Jay.
Yeah, before I begin, I just really want to thank everyone for joining us today, for people that are here in person, people joining online. You know, for everyone that's reached out to us, it's really touching, and it just means so much to our whole family that you're here, and yeah, we really, really appreciate it. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jay, one of Harriet's sons, and you know, today we really want to remember and celebrate her life, a life that was really an extraordinary journey for her, and also for the love, compassion, and support she brought her family, friends, and her community. First, I just want to cover a couple of points of the real basics of who she was. She was born on November 23rd, 1940, to Meyer and Minette Ruckman, who had immigrated from the U.S. from Russia as teenagers. She was the youngest of 3 children. I wasn't expecting to get verklempt until a little bit later in the speech, but it's coming sooner. She was the youngest of 3 children and had an older brother and sister, Marshall Ruckman and the late Louise Warschauer, who were a constant source of joy and companionship throughout her whole life. She also had a pet dog, Spider, that she lovingly remembered. She graduated from Northside High School in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then went to the University of Wisconsin before transferring to Indiana University. You know, Harriet, she believed strongly in education, both in obtaining it and providing it to others. You know, before having me and Mark, she worked for a number of years in the Chicago Public Schools as a speech therapist. While raising Mark and I, she obtained a master's degree from National Louis University and then taught in the northwest suburbs for many years. She also served on our school board for over a decade. She married Alan and had 2 children, me and my brother Mark. She also had 2 stepchildren, Bruce and Lori. She was an aunt to 11 nieces and nephews, and a grandmother to 6 children, and a great-grandmother to 2 grandchildren. I mean, those are the basics. But then, who was my mom? You know, my mom, she had an adventurous and independent streak. After graduating from Indiana University, she first moved to Cleveland and then to Chicago, which was a bold move for a woman of that era, while working as a speech therapist. In the 1960s, she was a young woman who had cool cars, a yellow Chevrolet convertible with white tires, followed by a Ford Mustang. Though her parents and great aunts were worried that a woman in her mid to late 20s had missed her chance at marriage because she was a little bit too old, Harriet proved that good things come to those who wait. In Chicago, my mom's roommate, who was dating my dad's roommate at the time, introduced her to Alan, who would be the love of her life. That introduction led to their marriage and provided definitive evidence that a 27-year-old college-educated woman with a good job in a 1965 Mustang could get married when she was ready to. Mom did her own thing, and she did it her way. And I believe this is one of the reasons that she was always so supportive of what we wanted to do. She always appreciated that each person would have to make their own decisions. And she supported all of us in the choices that we made, even though they were the choices that she maybe would not have made herself. She supported me in my decision to study abroad, even though I know that it was not easy for her when I was so far away. But she left her visits to Asia and the trip she took to Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. And always said she was so happy she got to see so many places that she never imagined that she would visit. Harriet always showed up for us and was present and was a constant source of warmth, love and support in our lives. There were the seemingly small acts, the handmade tiger costumes, toasted cheese sandwiches and hot chocolate on cold days, and the welcoming environment she always created for my and Mark's friends, who regularly talked and joked with her when she visited our house. And then there were the big acts, the unwavering support she provided to Mark and his family during his health struggles, and the steady support and presence for Lori and Bruce during their youth and throughout her life. How warmly she welcomed into our family David, Marlene, Jen, and Sopak, and made them feel at home. The final year of her life was filled with struggle and hope. The initial round of chemotherapy and the finality of a cancer diagnosis that could no longer be treated. It was during this time that Harriet showed her strength, composure, and positivity, always trying to reassure, nary a complaint. Speaking with my mom in the weeks before her death, she often said how lucky she was. How lucky she was to be born to her parents, Maya and Minette, who were such gentle and kind souls, and to have her brother and sister, Marshall and Louise. And how lucky she was to have met my father, Alan Cohen, and have had her children, her nieces, her nephews, relatives, and friends, all of which contributed to a full life. In her final days and moments, she was surrounded by those that she loved, was full of memories of love and connection, and a belief that she had a life well lived. Thank you.
Eshet chayil miimsa, v'rachok mipninim mirchaka. A good wife, a woman of valor, who can one find? Her worth is far more than rubies. It's an honor to recite these words of Eshet Chayil and know that deep in our hearts that there is no exaggeration in using them to speak of Harriet. Every line of this poem from the book of Proverbs rings true with who she was. She was an Eshet Chayil, a good daughter, a good sister, a good wife, a good mother and grandmother, great-grandmother. She was a woman of courage and a woman of strength. Raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Harriet was the youngest child of Meyer and Minette Ruckman. Both Russian immigrants, Minette was kind and gentle, Meyer was generous and a man of integrity, all qualities that Harriet embodied as well. Harriet told me several times that she'd truly had the best life and remarked about how lucky she was to have been raised by such caring, wonderful parents. Even as they made their way in the United States, they always prioritized Jewish community. The Ruckmans belonged to both of Fort Wayne synagogues, raised money for Israel, and eventually delighted in taking all of their grandchildren on trips to Israel as well. Upon graduating from high school, Harriet attended college first at Wisconsin and then Indiana University. Marshall and Louise, her older siblings, had already gotten married and moved out of their parents' home, as was the custom. But Harriet broke the mold. After college, she decided to move to Shaker Heights on her own to become a speech therapist. There was this spark of independence within her, guiding her to make a life for herself. She then moved to Chicago because, as she told me, she was looking for a nice Jewish boy, which she certainly found in Alan. As the proverb says, she is precious beyond rubies. Her husband trusts in her, and he lacks nothing because of her. In 56 years of marriage, her beloved Alan had ample opportunity to appreciate the truth of this description. The two of them met on that accidental double date, but their roommates were going out with each other. But it turned out that Alan had actually worked with Harriet's brother and father in the scrap business. The stars somehow aligned to bring them together, and they built a beautiful partnership. Alan and Harriet balanced each other out, her gentleness and understanding softening some of his rougher edges. Alan, you shared that she taught you how to communicate, trained you on how to better manage conflict, and she even got you to eat cooked green vegetables. You both were better for having been partners. Whether you were going to the gym, traveling, attending classes, spending time with friends and with your BJBE community, your lives together were so full. The proverb says, she tends to the affairs of her household and she eats not the bread of idleness. Together, Alan and Harriet created a happy family and a beautiful home. Marrying someone who already had 2 children wasn't an easy or straightforward undertaking, but Harriet took it in stride. Even as Bruce and Lori were initially impressed by Harriet's convertible Mustang when she and Alan started dating, it still took time and so much effort for their blended family to really blend. For Harriet, you two became her kids. She welcomed you into her life wholeheartedly. Whether you were making a dollhouse out of boxes or replacing the carefully selected wallpaper that Lori's dog chewed, you knew how much she prioritized family. And when Jay and Mark came on the scene, she made a point of ensuring that you truly were a united family. Harriet was a wonderful cook, and family dinner all together every night was an important dimension of building that closeness. And even after everyone moved out, reuniting around the dinner table was essential to her. Jewish holidays were an especially significant time for togetherness. The Seder table took up half the house, and you were all expected to be there. And your Sukkot gathering was a neighborhood event. Religion, Jewish identity, and having a Jewish household were all so important to Harriet. and the Cohen house was such a fun place to grow up. Jay and Mark, your friends, always felt comfortable and welcome coming over, and the energy in your home was light and silly. Harriet had an excellent sense of humor and a wry sarcasm, and somehow no topic was too serious to joke about. As you all grew up, it was Harriet who held the family together. Jay, as you said, she supported everyone in their own decisions, even when they weren't easy for her. Jay, living in Cambodia was no doubt hard for this very caring mother, but she supported you, and she went outside her comfort zone, visiting you with Alan for a month at a time, several times, fully immersing herself in your life there, and always serving as a model for Alan's photographs. She embraced each new spouse, delighted in being a grandmother. She doted on her grandkids and loved spending time with them, hosting holidays, going out for dinner, taking them to plays or on excursions to the Botanic Gardens, one of her favorite places. Family was always Harriet's priority. The proverb says, she girds herself with strength and performs her tasks with vigor. Harriet had a deep well of internal strength. She knew what was right for her, and she followed that internal compass. Her decision to move to Ohio at a young age was just one example of her commitment to doing what she knew she needed, and she always supported her kids and their paths when they did the same. She was independent, courageous, and spoke her mind, sharing her thoughtful opinions. She was a woman of honesty and integrity. To blend your family with such love and care took an incredible amount of strength and an unwavering commitment to those relationships. Harriet's strength especially emerged over the last 3 years as she dealt with increasingly severe health issues. She took on those challenges with grace and good humor. Harriet never complained. She never wanted anyone to worry. Even in her last days, she refused to tell her nurses how much pain she was in. The proverb says she opens her mouth with wisdom, words of chesed, of loving kindness are on her lips. Compassionate, kind, warm, gentle, understanding, and selfless. These words came up over and over again throughout our conversation yesterday as you described Harriet. She was always a tremendous source of support and empathy. She was an attentive and loving listener, and you could count on her to really listen to you, to understand what you were going through. Mark may have been the only one to officially inherit the educator gene, but through her example, each of you learned how to be empathetic, caring, and thoughtful people. It was in these ways that she was an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor in every sense of the word. And so we follow the injunction of the proverb, Tnu la mipri yadeha, v'yahelala v'shir'im ma'asaha. We honor her for the fruit of her hands. Wherever people gather, her deeds will continue to speak her praises. Our lives will all be enriched if, like Harriet, we commit to always showing up for one another. If we can be gentle and compassionate, sneak in a sarcastic comment here and there, and live our lives with love for and devotion to each other, if we bring these qualities forward, Harriet's legacy will continue on through all of us. And so her memory, as Judaism teaches, will truly be for a blessing. We will see her smile in the warmth of the sun and her compassion in every gentle breeze. Harriet's life was a blessing in many ways, and we give thanks to God for having been on this journey in life together with her. And in the sadness of death, we can find comfort in knowing that her soul is bound up in life eternal with God. Her memory will forever be a blessing. At this time, we offer words of El Mali Rachamim, our memorial prayer, as we pray that God will protect and keep Harriet's soul for eternity. I'll invite you to please rise. El Mali Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע, מזהירים את נשמת הניה בת מאיר ומנת שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. Let's read together the translation. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellst on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Harriet R. Cohen, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen.
This concludes the service here in the sanctuary. The interment will take place immediately at the family's plots at West Lawn Cemetery, 7801 West Montrose in Norwich. Following the interment, the family will be sitting today at the Cohen residence, 1423 Julie Lynn Court in Northbrook. They'll sit today until 8 and tomorrow, Tuesday, from 4 until 8. This is a cul-de-sac residence, but there is street parking available nearby. I'd also like you to please take note on the service folder. The family has asked that memorial contributions be made to the American Cancer Society. If you don't have one of these folders, they are available as you depart. For those of you watching online, this information is on the website you're currently on. For those of you joining with the family and going procession, the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker. That should be placed in the front passenger side of your windshield. We would also ask that you please have your bright headlights and flashing hazard lights on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, we will be placing magnetic flags on tops of the vehicles throughout the procession. As we drive in procession today, please drive as close as safety permits to the vehicle in front of you at all times. We want to avoid having any large spaces or gaps in the procession, particularly as we pass through the intersections. The following individuals have been selected to act as pallbearers. As I call your name, if you please step forward. Matt Craig, Alex Craig, Brian Cohen, Kevin Cohen, Jessica Cohen, and Spencer Cohen. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise as the deceased and family and rabbi are escorted from the sanctuary. Thank you. Pallbearers this way, please. This way, pallbearers.